What happens to news reporters when they're caught in self-promotion, sexual harassment accusations, or extreme political bias? From Piers Morgan to Bill Maher, these are the most arrogant TV news reporters. Piers Morgan is regarded by some as possibly the most arrogant TV news reporter in Britain, if not the world. The US public certainly didn't care for him. According to the New York Times, CNN signed Morgan as a Larry King replacement, hoping for a ratings boost. As Time magazine observed, it was hoped that the outspoken Brit would be the Simon Cowell of TV journalism. However, in 2014, his show was canceled after 3 years, with Time blaming it partly on his, quote, brash tabloidy air of self-promotion. An article from Vice didn't hold back either when laying out their opinions on why Morgan didn't work for American audiences, writing, "Mainstream America saw his Britishness, and it was repulsed by the yellow teeth, stinky breath, jam and buggery horror of it all." Morgan had arrogantly decided that he was above the culture that was paying his wages. So Morgan was sent back home to inflict himself on the British public once again. But his time came to an end shortly after Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's interview with Oprah Winfrey. After he got schooled over his Markle obsession by weatherman Alex Beresford, Morgan threw an epic temper tantrum and stormed off the set. The next day, it was reported that his time as a host of Good Morning Britain was over. Before Laura Ingraham became a Fox News anchor in 2017, she'd already earned a diva rep. Vanity Fair reported on her behavior, writing, "Ingraham was well known for being volatile with producers. Her on-set blow-ups were so legendary that staffers in the newsroom would sometimes turn on the monitors and watch the unfolding drama on mute for fun." Fox News can't get enough of her, however. According to Variety, despite a multitude of controversies, they negotiated a deal with the anchor in 2020, cementing a place for the Ingraham angle to rage on into the future indefinitely. An executive for the network said in a statement, "We are thrilled to feature her insightful perspective across our platforms for many years to come." Ingraham's, quote, "insightful perspective has included taunting Parkland shooting survivor David Hogg. Her rhetoric caused outrage, leading to advertisers boycotting Fox and for the Daily News to call out the converted Catholic, writing, how many acts of contrition have you personally offered up for the heinous sin of contempt you committed when you mocked a surviving traumatized child?" According to the Chicago Tribune, San Antonio Spurs coach Greg Popovich accused Ingraham of demonstrating an excessive amount of arrogance for telling LeBron James to, quote, "shut up and dribble," after the basketball player criticized Donald Trump. And she even questioned whether transgender kids were real, despite having a brother who's a member of the LGBTQ community. This resulted in Pride Source crowning Ingraham the Creep of the Week. Shepard Smith worked at Fox for 23 years, becoming managing editor of Breaking News, before jumping ship to CNBC in 2020. Smith was a controversial anchor for the network, frequently coming under fire for coming off as arrogant at times, and for refuting Donald Trump on multiple occasions.
We're interrupting this because what the President of the United States is saying, in large part, is absolutely untrue.
The Hollywood Reporter noted that the former president regularly took to Twitter to blast him as low ratings Shep Smith. Some Fox News viewers also took to Twitter demanding that Smith be fired. The blog site Real Rundown wasn't a fan of the anchor either, writing, "Shepard Smith belittles guests with verbal jabs, meant to show his feigned greater knowledge and expertise." Although it's worth noting that the same site also claimed Bill O'Reilly was an affable and pleasant host. Smith's alpha male personality reared its ugly head off camera, too. In 2000, the Los Angeles Times reported that he was charged with aggravated battery with a motor vehicle after ramming his car into a journalist in a fight over a parking space. In 2013, a waitress told Gawker that Smith became irate with her because she didn't refill his specially mixed cocktail quickly enough, allegedly screaming obscenities at her as he demanded his drink order. Matt Lauer was a Today Show fan favorite, but it was a different story off camera. His career ended after multiple news outlets reported that a female employee demonstrated irrefutable proof that he had behaved in a sexually inappropriate manner. The evidence reportedly included a photo he texted that was, quote, So damning, NBC had no choice but to fire him immediately. Lauer had vehemently denied any misconduct and was allegedly shocked to the core, with a source telling Page Six he was acting his usual cocky, confident self. He had no idea that this would turn out to be his last day on the show. According to The Atlantic, it was later revealed that he'd engaged in affairs during his time at 30 Rock and faced multiple allegations of sexual misconduct by female interns and staffers. Then there were Lauer's many uncomfortable on-air interactions, including his awkward attempt to kiss Ann Curry after she revealed she was leaving the show. And let's not forget his interview with Anne Hathaway, where he started off with an awkward question about paparazzi photos of her without underwear. In May 2020, Lauer wrote a scathing attack on Ronan Farrow. He slammed the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist's ethics and standards, focusing solely on the damning parts about himself, for which he appeared to accept little to no responsibility. Forbes observed that Lauer's takedown op-ed reminds those he victimized, and all of us, what the hashtag #MeToo movement is truly about: arrogance and abuse by those who have power. Megyn Kelly kicked off her career at Fox News before jumping to NBC in 2017. She hosted Megyn Kelly Today until it was canceled in 2018, following her arrogant and ignorant defense of blackface for Halloween.
I'm a little fired up over Halloween costumes this morning. Have you seen it? I mean, truly, political correctness has gone amok.
She mocked a variety of outfits that some had deemed inappropriate, such as dressing as Harvey Weinstein or as a cowboy. She also defended a Real Housewives cast member who darkened her skin to dress up as Diana Ross, saying, "Back when I was a kid, that was okay as long as you were dressing up as a character. People said that was racist, and I thought, I don't know, who doesn't love Diana Ross?" And Kelly allegedly has a history of arrogant race baiting. For instance, during a heated interview with D.L. Hughley, she attempted to victim blame Philando Castile, who was killed by law enforcement in Minnesota during a routine traffic stop. She also later accused Michael Brown of being the aggressor before being shot dead by cops. Marco Rubio branded Ed Schultz a liberal extremist during a bitter battle in 2011. According to HuffPost, the fight was sparked by Rubio's claim that Social Security makes the elderly dependent on government assistance. Schultz said that Rubio was so stupid he doesn't even know he's offensive. During his career at MSNBC, Schultz was vocal about being a champion for the working class. However, according to Salon, when he was asked to speak out against alleged union-busting attempts by NBC, he made a sudden 180, boasting on his radio show, "I'm a capitalist." It wasn't the first time Schultz had faced accusations of arrogance and hypocrisy. He had demanded that Anthony Weiner resign over his sexting scandal, just weeks after being suspended by MSNBC for using offensive and sexual language in an insult directed at Laura Ingraham. Ed Schultz died of natural causes in 2018. He was 64 years old. Tucker Carlson could be considered the USA's Piers Morgan, with the Washington Post calling him the voice of white grievance. Just like Morgan, Carlson loves nothing more than mansplaining, interrupting, and shouting at people, whomever they may be. Carlson cut off his Fox colleague Juan Williams mid-conversation during a debate on The Five, raising his hand and dismissing Williams while claiming to apparently have a dinner to get to somewhere. He suddenly decided dinner could wait, though, choosing instead to inform Williams,
"You haven't told me anything, actually, not one thing."
In response to this, writer, actor, and rapper Dr. Omekongo Dabinga tweeted, "Tucker Carlson is the perfect combination of arrogance and ignorance." His response to Juan Williams proves it. Carlson has crusaded against, quote, cancel culture, spread misinformation about COVID-19, and made Islamophobic, sexist, and homophobic remarks. Media Matters for America obtained audio recordings of interviews between Carlson and radio show host Bubba the Love Sponge. In the clips, Carlson spans a wide array of topics, from condoning statutory rape to talking about schoolgirls. He also insulted multiple women, including Paris Hilton, Britney Spears, and Martha Stewart's daughter. To top it off, he called Ariana Huffington a pig. Believe it or not, there's even more in the clips. In an article for Time magazine, Carlson's overall tactics were summed up with this statement: The more outlandish his rhetoric, the more vehement the backlash, the more formidable he becomes. George Stephanopoulos was forced to reinvent himself after losing his position as President Clinton's senior advisor in 1993. As the New York Times once wrote about him, "One day you are George Stephanopoulos, hip young icon of the new meritocracy, a yuppie prince with an Oxford degree, the ear of the president. A few months later, you are a symbol of arrogant overreaching." Stephanopoulos switched to TV news and rapidly moved up the ladder to become ABC Network's chief Washington correspondent and host of This Week. However, in 2008, he broke the cardinal rule of journalism, which is to strictly report on the story as opposed to become part of it. Stephanopoulos was slammed over his moderation of the Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton Democratic presidential candidate debate. The Washington Post claimed more favorable coverage for Clinton, while Stephanopoulos insisted to Politico that he, quote, asked tough but appropriate questions. In 2015, his journalistic integrity was under the spotlight again. It was alleged by the Washington Free Beacon that Stephanopoulos had made a series of what the publication described as secret donations to the Clinton Foundation. It's claimed he coughed up around $75,000 over 3 years. Reporting on the story, the New York Post wrote, My, the bigger they are, the dumber they think we are. Sean Hannity can be called many things, including arrogant, but he is also hugely popular. According to Nielsen, the Fox News star even overtook Tucker Carlson in August of 2021 to become the most-watched show in cable news, with a whopping 3.7 million viewers. Hannity was one of Donald Trump's biggest defenders, sharing glowing praise of the former president on multiple occasions. They were so close that they regularly texted each other as well, and the two even talked about political strategies. Hannity's critics are vocal about their problems with him, with the Washington Post's Eric Wemple telling Business Insider, Hannity is absolutely out of control and fighting for his life as a person of standing. His embrace of Trump is devoid of principle and reason and integrity. Cheat Sheet seconds that emotion, writing, Hannity's arrogance is unparalleled, and that would be fine if he were a reality TV star of some sort. However, to call himself a news host who doesn't have to follow the rules of journalism is just insane. Even so, Hannity couldn't care less about his critics, vowing to HuffPost, "Nobody tells me what to say on my show. They never have, and frankly, they never will." In 2021, Brian Williams retired from MSNBC, writing in his farewell email, 28 years, 38 countries, 8 Olympic Games, 7 presidential elections, half a dozen presidents, a few wars, and 1 SNL. I was fortunate that everyone I worked with made me better at my job. Williams' journalistic legacy was forever tarnished, though, due to multiple embellishments and deceptions. According to Vanity Fair, he repeatedly recounted a terrifying story of an Iraqi rocket attack on the helicopter he was flying in, resulting in a near-death crisis landing. Scary, right? Well, it would have been if he hadn't made it all up. NBC branded Williams' fabrication inexcusable and suspended him for 6 months. The Guardian reported that following the scandal, his other stories came under scrutiny, like a dead body floating past his window during Hurricane Katrina, or dodging gunfire during the Israeli-Hezbollah war. Getting robbed at gunpoint in the 70s while hawking Christmas trees was yet another example. According to Business Insider, Williams also alleged he went to Baghdad with the Navy SEALs who killed bin Laden, watched the Berlin Wall fall, and shook the Pope's hand. These are all stories in which Williams is believed to have stretched the truth. He eventually confessed to telling inaccurate accounts, but he insisted to Matt Lauer that he did not mislead anybody intentionally.
I said things that weren't true. Looking back, that's plain.
Rush Limbaugh never faced a fight that he wasn't willing to dive right into. Per the New York Times, he prided himself on his, quote, pompous arrogance shtick. When Michael J. Fox advocated for stem cell research, Limbaugh accused him of exaggerating the effects of Parkinson's disease. And according to CBS News, after Sandra Fluke demanded that colleges allow access to female contraceptives, he dismissed the Georgetown University student with derogatory terms and insults. Limbaugh was a conspiracy theorist who played fast and loose with the truth. According to The Guardian, he spread COVID misinformation, dismissing the virus as a common cold, while claiming that it was somehow being used to negatively impact Donald Trump. The commentator was a heavy smoker who persistently denied the dangers of tobacco, then died of lung cancer in February 2021. NBC News reported on his death, writing, "People who have made a living out of spreading outrageous lies are generally not stupid. They are experts at self-deception." A classic example of self-deception and possible projection was Limbaugh's persistent rallying against narcotics, as he claimed, "Drug use, some might say, is destroying this country, and we have laws against selling drugs, pushing drugs, using drugs, importing drugs. And so, if people are violating the law by doing drugs, they ought to be accused and they ought to be convicted and they ought to be sent up." However, according to the New York Times, when he was busted for doctor shopping and was discovered to be in possession of around 2,000 painkillers, he negotiated a plea deal that resulted in rehab rather than jail. Chris Matthews announced his retirement on air in 2020, telling viewers, "After a conversation with MSNBC, I decided tonight will be my last hardball." Matthews explained that he was making way for a younger and newer generation who were improving the workplace. But that workplace improvement bar allegedly had not been set high. The commentator earned a reputation as a sexist misogynist for his abundance of problematic interactions with women. For instance, according to The Cut, he once quipped about slipping Hillary Clinton a, quote, Bill Cosby pill, one of many examples of inappropriate behavior. However, after the Me Too movement became national news, he would no longer get away with his crude conduct. Given growing whispers about his behavior, it was no shock when GQ columnist Laura Bassett named and shamed Matthews as the sexually objectifying journalist she had written about 3 years prior in a 2017 HuffPost essay. In the essay, she had alleged that Matthews made inappropriate comments towards her on multiple occasions, but she hadn't disclosed his identity at the time out of fear of retaliation. Matthews made the on-air announcement that he was leaving just a few days after the GQ article was published. Eric Bolling is fiercely loyal to Donald Trump, regularly boasting about how close their relationship is. According to Business Insider, their friendship started in the mid-2000s after Mark Bennett introduced them on the set of The Apprentice. In a discussion with Politico about why he was considering a Senate run, Bolling described his Fox News Wake Up America rantings as really right-wing, hardcore conservative commentaries, and I think they're what my brand personally is all about. But this is an opportunity to get that voice out there stronger. During his career, Bolling once accused the Muppets of, quote, using class warfare to brainwash our kids. According to Media Matters, the Newsmax host has also been criticized for his racist remarks and commentary. In 2017, according to HuffPost, Bolling sent an unsolicited photo of male genitalia via text message to at least 3 female colleagues. The report was backed up by multiple sources, and the unfortunate recipients confirmed the photo's content. Fox kicked Bolling to the curb, but he immediately sprung back, landing a gig with Sinclair and The Blaze, an alt-right media entity. Bill Maher is right up there at the top of the list of most arrogant TV news reporters. The former comedian prides himself on being controversial, regularly producing troll-bait sound bites. GQ noted this when referencing a tweet that Newsweek wrote about Maher, reporting, Bill Maher is in the news again, and if Bill Maher is in the news, it's inevitably because he said something insufferable. The tweet from Newsweek itself read, Bill Maher says red state voters are jealous of blue states. We have Chef Wolfgang Puck. They have Chef Boyardee. Forbes attacked Maher for his relentless, tired obsession with wokeness, cancel culture, and liberal overreach. They also slammed him for laughingly hurling the N-word live on his show. A Change.org petition was launched, urging the public to both boycott and get his show taken off the air. Maher has also put his misogyny on full display. According to the Daily Beast, he defended Chris Matthews after the Hardball host was fired. And he mocked Laura Bassett for coming forward with claims of Matthews' inappropriate behavior. The Washington Post boiled down his character to this, writing, Bill Maher is smug. He often lacks empathy, particularly when confronted by the craven and dim. Maher uses arrogance as a form of renewable energy, occasionally windmilling it toward his audience or politically hostile guests. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of sexual assault, help is available. Visit the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network website or contact RAIN's National Helpline at 1-800-656-HOPE 4673.